If your gut lining is damaged, no amount of supplements will fix it. You can take every probiotic on the shelf. You can cut out every bad food. But if the actual wall protecting your gut is compromised, your managing symptoms will not solve the problem. Today, that changes. We're covering 5 foods that actively repair your gut lining. And the last one? It's a food humans have eaten for thousands of years, and modern science is only now catching up to why it works. Your gut lining is just one cell thick. That's it. One layer of cells stands between your bloodstream and everything you eat, including toxins, undigested particles, and bacteria you don't want circulating through your body. When that lining is healthy, it's selective. It lets nutrients through and keeps everything else out. When it's damaged through stress, poor diet, alcohol, or the foods we covered in our last video, it becomes permeable. Things leak through that shouldn't. Inflammation follows. The good news? This lining regenerates. Your entire gut lining replaces itself roughly every 5 to 7 days, which means what you eat this week is directly building the gut you'll have next week. Let's give it the right materials. Let's start with the foods that directly restock your gut's beneficial bacteria: sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, plain yogurt, miso. These foods go through a fermentation process where live bacteria break down sugars, and in doing so, they multiply into populations of probiotic strains your gut can actually use. A landmark study from Stanford tracked participants who added fermented foods to their diet over 10 weeks. The result? A measurable increase in microbial diversity and a corresponding decrease in markers of inflammation throughout the body. That's significant because most interventions that try to improve gut health either feed bacteria or kill bacteria. This is one of the few that directly adds beneficial strains to the population. Just a few tablespoons of sauerkraut or a daily serving of plain kefir is enough to start shifting the balance. But adding good bacteria is only half the job. You also need to feed the bacteria already living there, and that's where food number 2 comes in. Berries get called a superfood so often that the phrase has almost lost meaning. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people don't actually know why berries matter for gut repair specifically. Blueberries, blackberries, and pomegranates are exceptionally rich in compounds called polyphenols. Here's the catch. Your body only absorbs about 5 to 10% of the polyphenols you eat. The other 90 to 95%? They travel down into your colon, where your gut bacteria metabolize them into smaller bioactive compounds. Those compounds do 2 things. First, they act as fuel for beneficial bacteria, particularly strains like Akkermansia mucinifila, a species strongly associated with a thick, healthy mucus layer protecting the gut wall. Second, they directly reduce oxidative stress on the cells that make up your intestinal lining. In plain terms, berries don't just pass through. They get broken down into the exact materials your gut lining uses to repair itself. A handful a day. That's genuinely enough to matter. Now stay with me, because food number 3 works through a completely different mechanism. And it might be the most underrated gut healing food most people have never heard of. This one sounds boring. It is not boring. Resistant starch. You'll find it in green bananas, cooked and cooled potatoes, cooked and cooled rice, oats, and legumes like lentils and chickpeas. Here's what makes it different from regular starch. Your small intestine can't break it down. It passes through almost entirely intact all the way to your colon. And that's exactly the point, because once it reaches your colon, beneficial bacteria ferment it into compounds called short-chain fatty acids, and one in particular matters enormously here: butyrate. Butyrate is the primary fuel source for the cells that line your colon. Not glucose, not protein, butyrate. Studies show that adequate butyrate production strengthens the tight junctions between gut lining cells, reduces intestinal permeability, and lowers inflammatory markers throughout the digestive tract. A simple trick: cook your rice or potatoes, then refrigerate them overnight before eating. The cooling process actually increases the resistant starch content. Most people get this completely wrong. They think gut health is only about probiotics. It's not. It's about feeding the bacteria you already have the right job to do. If this is helpful so far, a quick like helps this reach more people who need to hear it. Now, food number 4. This one fights inflammation from a completely different angle. Remember the omega-6 to omega-3 imbalance we talked about in our last video? The one driving chronic inflammation in the modern diet? This is the food that helps correct it. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies. These fish are rich in EPA and DHA, 2 omega-3 fatty acids with a well-documented anti-inflammatory effect throughout the body, including the gut. Research published in Gut found that omega-3 supplementation was associated with increased abundance of beneficial gut bacteria, including several species linked to a stronger gut barrier. Separate research has shown omega-3 help maintain the integrity of tight junction proteins, the literal glue holding your gut lining cells together. 2 to 3 servings a week is the general benchmark most nutrition researchers point to. And if you don't eat fish regularly, algae-based omega-3 supplements are a legitimate alternative worth researching. 4 down, 1 to go. And this last one, the ancient one, works completely differently than anything else on this list because it doesn't just feed your gut bacteria. It directly rebuilds the physical structure of your gut lining. Humans have been making bone broth for thousands of years. Long before science could explain why, traditional cultures across the world simmered animal bones, connective tissue, and cartilage for hours, sometimes days, and drank the resulting liquid as both food and medicine. For most of the 20th century, nutritional science largely dismissed this as folklore. That's changing fast. Bone broth is exceptionally rich in collagen-derived gelatin and specific amino acids, particularly glycine, proline, and glutamine. Here's why that matters specifically for gut repair. Glutamine is the primary fuel source for the cells that make up your small intestine's lining, similar to how butyrate fuels your colon cells. Research has shown glutamine supplementation can help restore tight junction integrity and reduce intestinal permeability, particularly after gut injury or stress. Glycine, meanwhile, plays a critical role in the production of collagen, the literal structural protein your gut lining and connective tissue are partly made from. In other words, bone broth doesn't just feed your gut bacteria. It provides the raw building blocks your body uses to physically reconstruct the lining itself. Is bone broth a miracle cure on its own? No single food ever is, but out of everything on this list, it's the only one supplying the direct structural materials, not just fuel for bacteria, but literal building blocks for the tissue itself. A cup a day, homemade or a high-quality store-bought version with real collagen content. That's the practical target most practitioners point to. It took modern science a few hundred years to catch up to something grandmothers across nearly every culture already knew. Let's bring it together. 5 foods that actively repair your gut lining. 1. Fermented foods. They directly restock your beneficial bacteria population. 2. Polyphenol-rich berries. They get broken down into compounds that fuel gut lining repair. 3. Resistant starch. It feeds the production of butyrate, the primary fuel for your colon cells. 4. Omega-3 fatty fish. They calm inflammation and protect the tight junctions holding your gut lining together. 5. Bone broth. The ancient food providing literal structural building blocks for repair. None of this requires perfection. It requires consistency. Your gut lining rebuilds itself every week, whether you give it good materials or bad ones. The choice, every single day, is which one you hand it. If you haven't seen the first video in this series, the 5 foods quietly working against your gut, go watch that one next. Together, these 2 videos give you the complete picture. And if you found this helpful, subscribe. Because next, we're tackling something almost nobody talks about. How your gut health is secretly controlling your mood and what that actually means for your daily life.